On this week's episode of 90 Degrees, we are joined by Frank B., professional sports bettor and advisor to Mattress Mack. You can find Frank on Twitter at TiesWin. That's Ties as in Ties. Today we're talking about Frank's start in the industry, reminiscing about the good old days in sports betting, and legal versus offshore outs. Let's dive into the sharp side and look for the right angles in sports betting.
Big bomb bangers.
Ladies and gentlemen,
Bangers.
Jews and Gentiles,
Bangers.
sharps and
Bangers.
squares, welcome back to episode 27 of 90 Degrees, the show where we discuss the right sports betting angles. I'm your host, Kevin Davis, and today we are joined by professional sports bettor and casino player Frank B. But before we bring on Frank, I'm going to give a quick thank you to our sponsors over at Pinnacle Sportsbook. Pinnacle is the world's sharpest sportsbook and is now available in Ontario. Find out what professional bettors have known for decades. Pinnacle is where the bettors play, taking sharp action every day. No limits, low synthetic hold. It's a must have for those with the top down approach. Must be 19 plus in Ontario. Please play responsibly, not available in the United States. Now, before we go on to the show, I want to address two things from the last episode that I've been getting some feedback on. One, I said that, San Diego State, I think their head coach is Tony Gwynn. Little did I forget that he passed away 9 years ago. So I was definitely wrong on that. The second thing I wanted to bring up is that people are saying, Kevin, what's your secret on how you get down at these Canby books? Well, if I gave away the secret, it wouldn't be a secret anymore. But I'll give you a hint. The secret is to look degenerate, but be sharp. So with that being said, we got our guest Frank B today. Frank, how's it going?
Good morning, Kevin. Thanks for having me.
Ah, it's a pleasure to have you on, Frank. So why don't you tell everybody about where you fit into the sports betting and betting space in general?
Well, currently, I'm primarily a sports bettor, and now after close to 30 years in Las Vegas or in Nevada, now living in Mexico, but still participating in the sports betting, both offshore and in the U.S. Uh, Prior to moving, I spent a lot of time in like 27 years in Las Vegas, and did everything. When I first arrived, I came to town as a blackjack player, and then slowly and methodically added other casino games, and all the while betting sports. And the sports thing sort of progressed at an acceptable pace, while the a lot of the casino and especially the blackjack stuff, you sort of hit a ceiling there where you're no longer able to scale. And in addition to facing opposition from the casinos, it just seemed like concentrating on sports seemed to be the best choice. So that slowly moved through the offshore world. And then when betting became legal in the U.S., got involved there. And here we are now.
So when you were in the blackjack world 30 years ago, what were the differences between the games then and the games now that you've noticed?
Well, first off, there was a lot less consolidation back then. So you had basically more places to play. There was a lot less sophistication when it came to the casinos, and not only detecting what you're doing, but being able to do something about it. I mean, this is, we're talking uh, actually for a short while, I guess it was pre-internet. And so their methods of communicating with each other as to, trying to ferret out undesirables, uh, they struggle with that. And it was much more of a fair fight back then. But then as things grew and computer software was introduced, like first through the Griffin Agency and then through, I guess, Biometrica, and then others since then, that was the point where I started to realize, as you tried to play in a specific casino and you were stopped from playing before you even were dealt a card, is that all right, these things are changing now. They're aware. They're able just to run your face and figure out who you are and decide before you even play a hand whether they want you there. And obviously, it was going to make things difficult. So slid into the sports betting. Sports betting became more and more attractive as time went by. But as far as the games are concerned, yeah, you had a lot more handheld stuff. That's one thing. Um, better, just more diverse conditions and the ability to find softer games. No matter where you went. Nowadays, there's everything's sort of homogenous. Um, Not everything, but more so. And doing things the I guess you say the old-fashioned way, you're not going to last very long because it's an easily detectable activity, and you know you got to go a level or two above that to be able to get away with it nowadays.
All right, so the game of blackjack evolved. You moved on to other pursuits. What kind of got your eye about sports betting? What was the aha moment?
Well, okay, so in my initial years in Vegas, I was definitely playing blackjack, and but along the way learning about all the other casino games because now all of a sudden you're exposed to you have all kinds of opportunity around you. When I first started out, I actually was playing Atlantic City, and really the only thing there was blackjack, and in those casinos they can't throw you out just for because they deem you too good to play the game. They got to be a little more clever about sort of handcuffing you. So you get a little spoiled then. And of course, as anybody that succeeds in gambling, most people that go on into gambling as a career, they ran good early. Okay. That's almost like a sort of the most random thing about a person that gets into gambling. You could have some very good players that started out and they ran bad initially and they just gave up, but they probably had the wherewithal to be very successful. And then you have those people that they ran good, and I was one of them. When I left Atlantic City going to Vegas, I was like, "Wow, this is going to be easy. You got easier games to go play, and I don't have to sit there and bang my head against the first. Like a six deck shoe is not all of a sudden a great game. It's now a game I don't need to play those anymore. I'm playing double decks and single decks. So, uh, moving to Vegas and sorry, um, uh, it seemed like something that was a little too good to be true. But once I got there, um, things didn't go as planned. uh, the Vegas casinos were sharper when it came to dealing with basic card counter types, and I went broke in about a month. And at that point, I said, "All right, you got to figure out a way to grind out some money in a lower variance activity." And that's where learning about all the different casino games, and we're talking at the lowest level of stuff. We're talking serious grind stuff. That's where that came in, and from there it was just a learning process. And once you opened up your eyes and started to do things, but I will say one thing: learning to play blackjack properly was the foundation for everything. The methodology that you need to use to be a winning blackjack player is very cut and dry. It's very black and white. So taking from that and applying that to other activities is I still do that to this day. So it made it easy to take advantage of whatever it is. You start playing things like poker and playing in tournaments and just participating in promotions. Just using that basic foundation. I'm very big on basic strategy. So using that basic foundation and applying it to everything all the way through sports has served very well over the years.
Yeah, I think to be good at any sort of advantage play gambling, you have to be willing to lose and do so in a way where you're not second guessing a successful method that you're using. That variance is a huge part of it, and you just build a big enough cushion. So, from your experience of going belly up in blackjack, how did that inform your stake management for sports betting?
Okay. Well, listen, showing up in Vegas, I had to buy a car and everything, and between that and getting a place to stay, I had virtually no bankroll when I got there, and so it wasn't that big deal to replace a $1,000 bankroll. Um, so when it came to sports, what happened then? I had gotten into all these other activities that were, um, I would say, they're low level, like contests, for example, and low limit poker and things like that. So contests were the thing that propped me up, or that boosted me up to where I could then participate in other things that required more money. I say about on year 2 or 3 in Las Vegas, I had learned about the football contest in Vegas, and I won a few in rapid succession. So the first one I won was at Station Casinos, and that was a six-figure win. So immediately I went at, like, 10 times my bankroll just off that one hit. And then I won. I think over the course of 3 years, I won four more contests around town. None of them that big, but just going from somebody with a low five-figure bankroll to somebody now you're up well into this low six figures. That made all the difference in the world. Now I could get involved in all kinds of different things. Get involved with partnering with different players and in town that were involved in different facets of gambling, and it just snowballed from there.
Yeah, that's the crazy part. I couldn't imagine what I would have been doing if I had access to those contests in New Jersey. We still have some contests in New Jersey, and I definitely take advantage of them. And I'm just surprised because they publicly put up the leaderboards of how few people in these contests use the optimal strategy.
Well, back then, now let me tell you, back then the contest that I won, three. I know there were at least three that I won the contest. I consider this a win. Is when I went for most losers. Okay, because all the contests had, not all of them, but a lot of them had, they'd give a certain percentage of the pay scale to the winners, and then they give a certain percentage to the losers. Now, a lot of them that did that, you would get a frac. You get 10% would go to the loser, the worst record. But there was a one in particular, the one at Station, they gave, I think we calculated it was like 43% of the pay scale went to losers. And then immediately you could tell by the leaderboard and the records that were displayed was that, wait a minute, there's close to 90% of people are going for winners. So basically you had, let's call it 87% of the people playing were shooting at 57% of the pace of the pay scale, which meant about 12, 13% of the people were going at it for 43%. It's clearly the right thing to do, you know. And so, that's what you mean, by applying advantage. What the other end of it, those are all the people who were taking the worst of it. So that was something that, as time went by, people figured that out. Every year you look at it, more people are going for losers. More people are going for losers. And I always tell the story that after the year that I won, my friends were going, "Oh wow, man, that sounds great. I'm going to get in there." And I had people from out of state that I was putting in their entries. And a couple of years later, my buddy won doing the same thing. Like my best friend from childhood, he won the exact same contest in the exact same way. You know, and it was primarily because they had a exploitable uh, setup on the pay scale that not enough people were recognizing. So that's things are no longer like that. A lot more sharp people are in the gambling world, and specifically the sports betting world. So you don't get advantages like that just fall in your lap.
That is certainly like a big edge, if not as many people realize about the race to the bottom rather than the top. Um, was one of your strategies to look at the line movement and to take the picks where the line moved against it, just so you would get that extra?
Oh, one thing I need to point out: these are no point spread contests.
Oh, they're just pick 'em.
Yes, yes. So that's why the advantage is so big.
Oh my
Yeah.
god,
Although otherwise, yeah. Um, Otherwise, it wouldn't have been as profound. But so yeah, I mean, it was there was no really looking at lines. It's just what small dogs did you want to take a shot at to um, you know pull an upset, because you had to differentiate yourself a little bit from the field of the people where they're just picking all faves and filling out the card backwards. But you didn't want to get too out of line, because just picking out all the faves puts you near the top in the last quartile of the season so that you would be able to have a shot and then play. So you didn't want to get too crazy early on. You kind of stayed in your lane until things started to develop and become a little clear at the top of the standings. So yeah, it was very like I said, with no point spreads, it was the strategy to employ was not that hard to figure out.
Yeah, I mean, for the point spread contest, obviously, well, I shouldn't say obviously, I would take the ones where the line moved against it if I was going for the bottom. But these money line contests where you're just picking the winner, I mean, that just sounds too easy to make up.
Well, that's how all the contests were back then, except for the Hilton. With the Westgate now, but that with the Hilton. The Hilton had their contest, and then every other contest in town, and there were a lot of them back then, they were no point spreads. And then I believe Stratosphere introduced a point spread contest, and then South Point threw their hat in there and they ran one. And then, the whole contest thing started to build until you get where we are today, where you have survivors and things like that. But, the first survivor was at Wynn. Wynn held a survivor contest, and my buddy won that. No, I'm sorry. My buddy at the time came in second to a current friend that he ended up winning it. So the universe, the world of sort of advantage players back then was very small. We tended to know just about everybody that won every contest back then.
So while you were doing this advantage play and like grinding up your bankroll, did you work any other odd jobs before
No,
so you just went full professional right away?
yeah, and after a while in the blackjack world, I became known well enough that I got asked by various teams to participate, and I did participate, and I did sign on with one because the deal was too good to turn down, and it was with one of the biggest teams in the world, and involved traveling and things like that. And as a I was doing just fine on my own, running into trouble, like getting backed off at a current pace, but joining that team, things went through the roof, because now you're taking yourself from, low black play into now you're betting thousands of dollars a hand, and that didn't go over well. I mean, I got burnt out at blackjack in less than 2 years, and that's traveling around, going to all over the country, going to the islands, going to Australia. It didn't. In retrospect, it probably wasn't worth it, other than the contacts that I was able to make. But it was, certainly an experience, and but casinos just take blackjack so much harder than just about anything. I would say anything else that you try to throw at them. They don't like it when you're playing blackjack and they feel that you have the edge on them. So they react strongly, and that's what got me to where I got put in all the books, and you know from that point forward, I would always have problems in casinos.
All right. So you got put into the books. Like I say, with any sort of professional gambling, it's the only career where once you get too good, you get forced into the retirement. So once you're done with blackjack and you went on the sports, how long did it take the sports books to catch up versus how long it took casinos to catch up on blackjack?
Okay, so well in sports, there were two venues that you could participate in. One was just in the United States, but just in Las Vegas, or not just in Nevada. And then there was offshore. And offshore was far and away the more lucrative area. So I got involved heavily there, um, which means, you're spending a lot of time sitting in a chair staring at a screen. And this went on for, the better part of 10 years. And um, while the journey through offshore was certainly worth it, it was when these sports books were just starting up. I mean, they had definitely had weaknesses, and if you were aggressive, you were getting involved with just about anybody out there that was willing to book a bet, and um, you had to take the good with the bad. Uh, Certainly, lots of soft spots, but also lots of operators out there that probably shouldn't have been booking to the degree that they were, considering the opposition that they were allowing. Um, there was a run, I would say, from about 2003 to about 2008, where a lot of books collapsed, They went out of business or they just stiffed the things. And I'll tell you what, it just seemed no matter what, no matter which one it was, I had a funded account there, and I had to, and I was like, just it would go from something that you could stomach to a couple that were very difficult to stomach. The one that everybody remembers that was participating back there is Aces Gold. Have you ever heard of this, Kevin? Aces Gold.
No, but it already sounds like gold.
So back in the early 2000s, they had a book, Aces Gold, and they were trying to compete with the Pinnacles, the Chris's, and all. You ever hear of the Greek Olympic?
Of course.
So Aces Gold entered the scene. They saw the opportunity. We had also had a site called NetTeller back then. NetTeller still exists today, I believe. And you could move money around, sort of the way we do today with crypto. You could do back then with NetTeller was your intermediary. You would have money on deposit at NetTeller, and if you wanted to deposit, say at Chris, you just went in there, clicked it, sent it to Chris, and it was accepted just like that. Got into your account. It was a go-between because otherwise you're going to Western Union and MoneyGram for the most part to fund your accounts. So anyway, Aces Gold got involved. They got set up, just worked just perfectly with NetTeller, and they ran promotions to try to get themselves caught up with the other books. They would basically giving away the store. Right off the top, you get 20% cash bonus just for sending a deposit, and you could do up to six figures for that. Then on Fridays, they had no vig Fridays. So in the NFL and college football, I can't remember if it was college football. But it was definitely the NFL because this was the start of their downfall. So they would take, you could bet no vig. So there was no juice on football. In addition to that, all the time, 7 days a week, you could buy a half point for 10 cents, including on and off the three. So just imagine guys that know a little, you have to know.
10 cents off any half point.
Yes. So to imagine they line something, it's the line. Yeah, just imagine something is line three. So now on Friday it's three even. And you got your buddy, he's got a big funded account, and he takes three, buys the half to 3.5. You take the three, buy it down to 2.5. Now you got minus 2.5, minus 10, and plus 3.5, minus 10. Well, you just picked yourself. I think that's worth about 24 cents right there. So that's a double-digit advantage on all the money that you put at risk. And you just did that every week. You just went in every week, plugged everything in, give them a little peripheral action. If they're off by a half point, okay, I'm going to play that. But for the most part, everybody was taking a shot at the same thing, hoping for a game to land through. This went on for the entire year, and they were taking. And by that time, we were running an operation where we had, not a lot of accounts, but enough accounts that we had like between $500,000 and $1 million on deposit at Aces Gold, and we're shooting. Things are going on fine. We're dragging money out as we could, but the playoffs came that year, and there was a game. I believe it was with the tuck rule game, and in that game, it landed favorite by 3, and everybody had it. Everybody had it. So that means everybody scooped. They didn't. If I can't imagine that what their loss was. It had to be, their hold is got to be like negative 80%. I can't imagine. I'm sure people bet other stuff, but that was right there. That was basically the death stroke right there. They were dead in the water, but they decided to stay open through the remainder of the playoffs. And the move they pulled for Super Bowl is they put up a line that they knew would only get one-way action. They made clear and away the best line on whatever it was, the favorite, though I can't remember. I believe it might have been the Rams were involved, but they lost the bet. So everybody bet the one side with them. They all won. All the players won because you're only going to take the value side. And so that happens on a Sunday, Super Bowl Sunday. People are now trying to get their money out. They're putting their withdrawal request in. On Friday, you log onto the site and you see the sign. They refer to this now in the offshore world as Black Friday. It was the notice that we've gone out of business. We've gone out of business, and we apologize for the inconvenience, of taking all your money. But there really is no recourse, and that's that. Nice to know you. And that was it. And I lost, a ton of money in that one. And then after that, I lost my partner in that process too. My primary partner, he said, I can't stomach this. That's too big of a hit for me to stomach. And so he was out. And, from there, sports betting offshore, people were, uber aware of uh, startup books and all that, and were much more careful. But of course, I kept going at it, and I got stiff by Bet on Sports. I got stiff by Camelot. I got, it's just a list of places that I just happened to have good balances there when they went out of business, which, as betting started to become discussed about in the U.S., you say, oh, I can't wait for it to go legal in the U.S. And between that point and the point that it did go legal, I started betting a lot more
Aha.
in Las Vegas.
So the fact that you were getting stiff from the offshores didn't scare you off from them, but eventually you started to migrate back to Las Vegas just because of the reliability of payouts.
It also became a lot more sketchier off score. You had a lot more books opening up that they realized that they could start up on a shoestring, because with the advent of like paperhead sites or paperhead providers, it didn't cost much to start up a sports book. You know, just like the bookies today who run off paperhead. I mean, you can get a paper for $500. You could have your own sports book right now. You can just, pay a paperhead service, and you're a bookie with a full functioning sports book. So you had to be more wary of new startups, and especially incentive offers to get you going, which is what put guys in a certain frame of mind that when the U.S. books start up, they expected a sign up bonus, because that was the big way of drawing people offshore. Um, but you came to appreciate the reliability and that you're going to get paid when you started playing when you went back to playing more so in Nevada, because we used to have a question that we would always ask somebody, say, hey, you should try out this book. It's pretty good. They offer this, that, and the other thing. You say, oh, okay, are they down and out? And they say, well, yeah, yeah, they're up so far. As far as my experience goes, and what that meant is down and out is, can you get money down, and can you get the money out? And you would pretty much that would develop that reputation from word of mouth for experience. But anybody that started up fresh, it was, you were taking a shot. All right, I'll take a shot. We'll get to put some money in, play a little bit, take some money out, see how that goes, and just experiment from there. So yeah, it became much more treacherous offshore, and so it gravitated and started playing more in Vegas, and then eventually it became a meld of the both.
So, how long were you in Vegas after you were done with? So, from Black Friday to PASPA, I'm assuming you were in Vegas. So, after PASPA, the Supreme Court decision that opened the floodgates to sports betting outside of Las Vegas, how did your betting change with the increased legal sports betting landscape?
Well, have you always been in back east?
Yep,
Okay, so were you there when Jersey started up?
I was. I was living in the Bronx, working for the city of New York, and I was in downtown. So the train to New Jersey was 15 minutes away. So once New
Okay.
Jersey legalized it, I was making trips 4 or 5 times a week after work to make bets on my phone. Then I just decided to move here because I was tired of making the trip. Um, but basically, I was there from day one. My only sports betting experience before that was with my local Dominican bookie in the back of my barber shop, and a Italian guy in my neighborhood in the Bronx, but never with these offshore sites or with Bitcoin or with deposit bonuses or with player props.
Yeah, the player props were big. That was, by the way, the Greek Olympic. They were number one in player props back then, and everybody copied them. They had people that would put up props, and that's why they were a very popular book. You could bet that stuff there. They were also the book that started um, the 5 inning line,
Mm.
but they used a true half a game line. They used a
Oh
four and a
God.
half inning line. So you had one team that got five at bats, and the other team the bottom team got four at bats, and they would put up a money line and a total for that. It was fun. I tell you what, I really miss Olympic.
Well, there's at least
Um,
two sports book out there right now in New Jersey that have a 4.5 inning line.
oh, do they? Okay, cool. Yeah, it's good to see stuff like that, because it takes a little more thought, because you got, it's a 5-4 ratio as far as at bats go, and you gotta account for that. It's not as simple as just, hey, everything's even. Um, but yeah, the as far as exploring beyond Nevada goes, The first year that it was legal back in New Jersey, I was just hearing about it. I was listening as those first few months were taking place, and then it became obvious that it was pretty good because the suspicion before it started was that it would suck, is that it would be very similar to the Euro books, that you'd get handcuffed real fast, and you wouldn't. They'd have juice straddles that were beyond what you were, what you're accustomed to in Nevada. Another 20-cent straddles. The fear was that they were going to be using 30-cent straddles and beyond, an aggressive scaling of the straddle. And it turned out not to be quite all that. And as soon as that became apparent, I did make a trip to New Jersey and start getting involved out there, and um, that went okay. So some of your suspicions were actually uh, had merit, and others were, wow, you can actually get away with. You can actually do a lot with these books. I do remember the first week I was in a hotel in Atlantic City, and I had just been there, and I just signed up for PointsBet. And before I even made a bet, I got a phone call from God, what's the guy's name? I don't want to say the wrong name, Johnny something. He's the big guy at PointsBet. He's, oh wow, thanks for signing up. We're happy to have you. And basically, what he did is he gave me a little speech about. He never really said it, but what he was saying is, don't beard in, okay? Because we're going to let you play. We're going to be fair. We're going to let you play, and you're fair with us. We'll be fair with you. That kind of thing. But it was clear that under the surface, what he's really saying is, just don't beard in, okay? Because of they were having bonus, whatever it was, 1,000 or 2,000 bonus. Plus, they had attractive things. They had that action point thing going on then. I don't know if they still have it now, because within the first week, despite what Johnny said, they backed me off. They backed you off. They cut you way down. Got the email. You are excluded from recreational player promotions and this and that and the other thing. And it was just like, it wasn't but 5 days ago that the guy said he's going to give you a shot. And how much of a shot could you have in 5 days? So it was then that the light bulb went on, and you said, well, these books, the way that they're going to operate is they're going to do it sort of the Euro style, which is they're going to try to maximize their return on investment for per dollar bet, rather than maximize their volume and just make sure they have a, a verifiable edge overall. They weren't interested in that. They wanted to crush everybody. And if you were a type of player that they weren't going to be able to crush, they weren't interested in you. So it's basically like the two styles of bookmaking. You saw it offshore, and you actually see it in Vegas, and you see it certainly in other parts of the U.S. You got the one type of where their objective is to maximize their ROI, and they do that by ferreting out the sharper players, the players who don't have a good hold against, or they have a negative hold against. Let's just get rid of them, because this is the way we want to deal sports, versus the other style, which is to maximize volume and do that because you're competent bookmakers, like Circa does, for example. Circa's not worried about that because they book responsibly and they're competent, and they don't have to worry about backing people off to make sure that they establish hold. They're going to get there on volume. And, so it became painfully obvious that the majority of these books were not interested in, dealing to everybody. They had their certain profile of a gambler they considered acceptable. And if you didn't fit it, you got handcuffed, and, that was it. Your lifespan there was short.
Yeah, that's certainly like interesting to think about, like the evolution on profiling customers. One thing with Circa that makes them different, in defense of the soft books, and they're always welcome on the show, is this. A lot of the soft books offer markets on everything because they want to keep everyone engaged, and
Yeah.
Circa has more limited markets. So they're going to use their talent to let people bet,
Right.
but they're not going to have like the 300 different player props listed at Circa way before other books, except for a select few sports.
Yes. Well, I think that the philosophy is sort of like the Pinnacle philosophy is, as they move forward, and they gain more competence. And that probably what that means is just hiring more people to take charge of this particular niche area and make lines for that and make sure that they are comfortable with them and then put them out there. I think you're going to see them grow. I mean, I have seen them. They start to offer a more varied menu, but they can't do what the Euro type books do, where they just have these computer programs that spit out every variation, every derivative of a bet based on some formula that has inefficiencies within it. But they just put everything possible up there because they want you to just keep betting everything in every possible way because it's just stacking juice on top of juice. Oh, well, you bet the game. I mean, even when DraftKings started, I thought it was a stupid move on their part. But when I got to New Jersey, DraftKings, I'd load up a sport, and if it was like basketball or football, and their default was -11 in each direction. It's like, wait a minute, what? It's almost like you're insulting. You say, listen, we're going to get more out of you. We're starting. Everybody starts at $1.10. That's the accepted norm. We're going to go minus $1.11. I don't think it lasted. I don't think that lasted all that long. I think they realized that was a mistake because it's painfully obvious right there in front of you. Look, we're starting it out at $1.11, and then as they scale up, they would become more aggressive in scaling than say, like a Circa now, or when you got up to the $1.30s, all of a sudden it's not 22 cents, it's 27 cents, and you get up in the 50s. Now we're in the 30 cents, and if you were just paying attention a little bit, you say, well, man, they're just taking more. Now DraftKings is not like that anymore. They have a very competitive straddle and scaled straddle. They've changed their ways for whatever reason that they arrived at, but they're very competitive compared to like MGM's. I think has the worst straddle and scaled straddle that out there of the primary, the big books that are all over the country. So I mean, books, they try and see what they can get away with. They say, this isn't serving us all right. But in the end, it's all about maximizing their return. And with the majority of these books having that attitude, well, we want to do that through player control rather than just maximizing volume because we're confident in the way we bookmake. That's what you're dealing with now.
I mean, I think a lot of it's from the sophistication of the investors that the sports books go to the investors, especially if they're publicly owned, and say, look how much we're making per customer, and this justifies our marketing expense. Because once they join the sports book, we're going to be making more money per customer than we would have been, without these products.
And then, of course, when it comes to the part about player control, handcuffing, they want to make it not only difficult for you to bet, they want to make it. I found it in a lot of these books, not all of them, but they make it an unpleasant experience dealing with them. And what I'm talking about primarily is it's not the deposit process, it's the withdrawal process. I don't know how many times have you been asked for a utility bill, for example.
Too many.
Like what does that have to do? Yeah, what's that have to do with anything? Like me being at that point,
they want to make sure it isn't money laundering, but they weren't concerned about that when I was depositing. It's only when I'm withdrawing.
It's like the cop that pulls you over, and there's no real reason for it, and you say, well, what'd you pull me over for? And they use some vague, well, you were weaving, or you made a suspicious move. You suspicious turnaround. You're circling around. It really isn't an offense or anything. It's just like it's a reason to give you a hard time. And the one that annoys me, like I have money held up in Colorado right now at a book because they want a utility bill. Now there's nothing wrong with my my information. It all matches. It's just that I don't have a utility bill. I live in Mexico. I have an office in Las Vegas that I work at, but I don't pay the utilities. I don't have anything in my name, but that's my address for everything. And they're like, well, no, you have to have something that matches up, and it can't be a photograph. It has to be they're just trying to be a pain in the ass. So to make it difficult on you to get your money out and deter you from coming back, and. Sometimes they go a little too far because I know people that got their money. They get their money tied up for months, and you just have to prove that you're you. I think it should be part of law. And I know it's up to each individual state, but in each individual state, I think it should be the law that a person should be able to show up at a physical location and get payment on demand. Like, here's my passport. I want my account. Stop with this nonsense of I got to start sending you pictures of me holding today's newspaper and a utility bill from the water company. Here I am. This is my account. Here's my ID. Pay me now. But that's not the way it is. Some of these are internet only books, and you got to put up with this nonsense. And it is they achieve their their objective. It is a deterrent for some people.
Now, playing devil's advocate here, let's say you're friends with Pablo Escobar
Mm-hmm.
when he was alive, and he gave you a bunch of money. So you can figure what's the best way to launder it. I'm going to deposit into a sports book, and I'm going to bet one side of the spread. Then I'm going to set up another sports book account, bet the other side of the spread. Then whatever sports book has the winning bet, I'm going to withdraw from. How does the casino make sure that the money was actually used by someone betting rather than for laundering it? So the person couldn't write it on their tag and say, "Oh, I got lucky, I won this big bet."
Well, listen. I guess if you decided that you wanted to go about it that way of laundering, you could. But I could just go to Mississippi, or I could go to New Jersey, or I could go to Nevada and bet with cash, right? Go over the window with cash. You could do that. I mean, got to do all this paper trail stuff. I mean, they're always going to be able to come up with an NYC excuse for putting all these restrictions and requirements on the player. But when you're giving people a hard time, and it's quite obviously them, and they have no recourse but to put up with all the jumping through all these hoops, it just seems like I understand where you're coming from. But do you not agree that there should be a physical location you should be able to go to? This is me. Okay, this is I signed up. Here it is. Here I am. Please pay me. I mean,
I mean, of course, I agree with that because if someone was doing something sketchy and they have to show up in person, they'd be less willing to do that than online.
right. And there's some people are just not as literate as others with all this stuff. I mean, you'd be surprised that someone just wants to get some bets down, and they get enticed by an ad and they deposit money. All of a sudden, their money is caught up. So I don't know how to get this out. Can you help me? They're yelling at me because my daughter's name is on my PayPal account, or they're giving me a hard. It's you know. I just think it opens. I think that is abused. That aspect of it is abused, and that players get hassled unnecessarily because they're suspected of being beards. I mean, listen, we all know what a beard looks like. You got somebody, right? Is 62 years old, and this grandmother, she's really just interested in betting third quarter NBA. And she seems to do really well at it. And okay, I understand. You're gonna, but when push comes to shove, if all her stuff is in order, you got to pay. You got to pay these people because that's the game you chose to play by saying we're going to restrict everybody on anything that they seem to show any competence at. What do you expect people to do? Because when it comes from an advantage player's viewpoint, you have a job as a sports book, and that's to make money. Okay, and that's to make money by maximizing your ROI. Same thing with advantage players. That's their job. They want to make money, and they want to do it by maximizing their ROI. And if you're going to shut them out, just like getting countermeasured in the blackjack world, well, we're going to try and figure out another way to get in. We're going to try to figure out another way to get in. And when you make it so obvious that the first thing, because it is obvious to some people that the very first encounter with a sports book these days, don't even use just beard in. And no people don't like to admit it, but what do you think's going on? When you have guys on the internet and just campaigning, would you like? Do you have accounts you can give us so that we could bet on your accounts? I mean, that's what it's come to. Is that we're going to bet under other people's names. We're going to bet under other accounts, and it's because you won't take a bet. Now, do you have a right to try to stop us? Yes. Are we going to try? Yes. It's just the way. That's the game. Okay. So, I don't make any apologies for that. I don't bet on my name. I have accounts, but I participate with other people who are much better and much more patient at this stuff than me. And that's the way. Obviously, it's the way a lot of people. What do you think? You get a lot of accounts out there with Spanky's name on it, and he's just betting what he wants. It's not how it works.
Yeah, because with his given name, he really sticks out like a sore thumb. He doesn't have a generic name
Right.
like Kevin
Yeah,
Day.
alphabet soup. I go, there was an old trivia question like, can you name the Major League Baseball players that have every vowel in, in their in their name? There was like three of them back in the day. When we one if anybody had the first name of Aurelio, Aurelio has every vowel in the name. And then there were two pitchers, Nelson Figueroa and Al Figueroa. Figueroa got everything. But anyway, yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about.
So now, like, this isn't really sports betting related, but I'm just curious. What's it like living in Mexico, but working as a professional sports bettor who has to go to the United States frequently? I
Okay,
mean, obviously,
well,
when you walk around Mexico, they know you're not a native.
right, yeah, but I'm in a city that's a heavy expat population, Puerto Vallarta, and a lot of Canadians, a lot of Americans here. Um, but you can't bet at the sports books here because of the tax. The tax is 7% on your net win per bet, so you're laying $1.10 to win 93. Um, it's a tough hill to climb. So yeah, so I bet offshore, and I bet with partnerships, and I go back and forth maybe uh, 4 or 5 times a year, and for extended periods. I don't spend the summer here yet. I'm not that hardcore when it comes to because that's the rainy and humid season here. And when I say rainy and humid, you are wet all the time from July, August, and then through September. So fits perfectly for me because I go to America and other places and get football going, NFL, because that's my primary, that's the primary sport I participate in. But it also kind of dovetailed with some life choices that I make, which was to establish more balance when it came to uh, daily life. I had spent those 10 years in Las Vegas sitting in that chair for 10 hours a day, like every day. And I had a runner, and I did that day in, day out, year after year, and it started to take a real toll, um, physically, mentally, but primarily the thing you notice first is physically. I was just developing like old man physical issues, and unable to move quite the way I wanted to, and in addition to you end up doing these bad habits. I know a lot of guys today still the same. They sit there in front of the screen and they eat a lot of their meals in front of the screen, and they don't move around. They don't get outside very much, and that takes its toll after a while. And I didn't like where things were heading, so I made a change. I told my runner, I said, "Listen, I'm going to start doing this stuff on my own. You can help me where possible, but I can't be sitting in this chair any longer." And that's where things changed quite dramatically. I started traveling a lot and realizing how much better I felt, how much healthier I was because I was outside doing things instead of sitting in that chair all day long. So that slowly, when I got down to Mexico and started seeing the lifestyle down here, I'm like, wow, I'm going to live longer if I incorporate, if I make some changes. So I bought a place down here, and I absolutely, it's just like when you make a big move in life. Most of the time, you go, "Wow, that's the best thing I ever did." It's just hard to pull the trigger for a lot of people. Um, but when it came to the health aspect of things, and the older you get, you start to realize I'm not looking forward to the day that I am not mobile anymore. Not able to do the things that I want to do. So you have to. It's a trade-off. I don't make as much money. I don't spend as much hours playing. I have to make arrangements with other people. But quality of life it means a lot. So I just can't do the sitting in the chair all day staring at the screen. Um, and Mexico is a whole part of that thing. But when I do go back, do get back to work and get some things done. Check out different states. So I'm still involved in all that stuff, but just to a lesser degree. There's more balance, which is if there's anything I would like to stress to people out there as they advance in age is you need to have balance because without it, things are going to start just like a car that you can beat on for 10 years, brand new out of the off a dealership floor. You get away with a lot of it, but after a while, the car starts having problems, having issues, and there's the difference between a car that lasts you 10, 12 years and you got to get rid of it because there's too much wrong with it, and one that goes 20 years is how you treat it and maintain it, you know, along the way. And I don't want to be that car that conked out after 12 years. So yeah, more balance is definitely was a good move for me.
So, Frank, to end the show, what is the best advice you have for people who are just getting into sports betting?
Okay, now this is interesting because I have a son who I'm basically coaching up on how to be. He wanted to do something do something similar to what I did. So I started him out uh, doing things like I said. I started in blackjack. Blackjack, there's a basic strategy. There's just almost every aspect of it. There's one right answer, and everything else is wrong. I would start it with something that with an activity that you can verify as you. Here's how you have the edge, so that you know when you've made a good decision, when you make a bet or you make a play, and you know when you make a bad. And you get, like I tell my kid, I said, listen, don't you got to stop. You got to let go of how you do every day, because now he's already got his own team and everything going after just 1 year, and he has some issues with persons, that they get upset if they lose one, on a particular day. And I said, you gotta drill it into them that you're not going to be considered successful because you won on a specific day. Let go of, did I win this bet? Did I lose this bet? Did I win on this machine? Did I lose on this machine? Did I make the right decision? That's it. Make the right decision, you won. Make a wrong decision, you lost. You start getting in there and you start hitting 13 against a 4, you lost. I don't care if you won the hand. I don't care if you pulled an 8. You lost that hand because you played it wrong. You made negative EV. You didn't make the best choice that you could have right then. And I would say just start small, something that you could grasp, and that's maybe you have some familiarity with, and start there because you have a little extra going for you knowledge wise, and see if you can master that area, and then just keep expanding from there. But always keeping in mind that there's a basic strategy for everything. You can train people nowadays, and trust me, I'm doing it right now, and other people do it, and it's basically, I guess, that's Spanky's method. You don't have to know any of the players. You don't really have to know much about the individual players and become a handicapper. You got to know how the mechanics of the gambling activity that you're involved in, how they work, what matters, what carries a lot of weight, what doesn't carry a lot of weight. Be able to apply things in proportion that way, and you'll be able to figure out how to beat something. And you don't have to be an ex. You don't have to know the backup catcher on the Mariners. You don't need to have all that extensive knowledge. You just got to know how the game operates and how to take advantage of the weaknesses that your opponent displays.
All right, Frank, it was a pleasure having you on the show today. Is there anything else that you would like to add or anything you would like to plug?
Well, promotion wise, I'm not promoting anything personally, but I have a Twitter account. It's at Ties Win, and I've had it for I think 13 years, and I think I have 130 tweets. So don't tweet often, but when I do, it's usually something interesting. But I do have some friends that are in the sports and gambling information areas, and they have good sites with good information. One is my partner in the Mattress Mack project, and it's Anthony Curtis at LasVegasAdvisor.com. Just a whole bunch of stuff there on everything Las Vegas and everything, how to get the best of it when you're visiting Sin City. The other site I think is well worth taking a look at, unabated.com. Friends of mine, definitely a noble effort there in trying to provide educational material for sports bettors to make them self-sufficient and better gamblers. And then, of course, thank you to Spanky, who provides Spank odds for free to everybody. It's a great gesture and certainly something everybody should be taking advantage of. It will show you how much you can achieve by having current and up-to-date, accurate information on the sports betting marketplace. So yeah, just give those guys a visit, and you won't be sorry.
The easiest way to improve as a sports bettor is to use multiple sports books and always get the best odds. We recommend using an odds comparison tool like the one I use, BetStamp. BetStamp compares odds across every sportsbook for games, futures, and player props. Save time and money by checking BetStamp before you bet. Download the app today for free. That is $0. If you're looking to sign up for a new sportsbook account, please check out the offers available at betstamp.app/circles off or hit the link in the description. If you sign up through this page, it helps support the show.
Big bomb bomb bangers. Boogie down.
Thank you for tuning in to
Big
90 Degrees,
bangers,
presented
bangers,
by the
bomb,
Hammer Betting Network and Pinnacle Sportsbook. Head over to our website, thehammer.bet, for all your sports betting needs. If you've enjoyed the show, click that like button. If you're new to the channel, hit that subscribe button. If you made it this far, please drop a comment on your favorite memory of sports betting pre-PASPA. Let's cash.
Down.